In today's episode, I want to address the trust in new media and new media personalities such as Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or even Megyn Kelly, individuals who were once part of an established media corporation like Fox News or CNN, what's been identified or called the legacy media, and how trust in new media is built upon the idea that Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly, untethered from the special interest of legacy media, now represent their own interest and the interest of you and me and the everyday American. This anti-elitism, anti-corporate corruption narrative is really a mile wide and an inch deep if you look at who is funding Tucker Carlson and if you understand who Tucker Carlson is, a DC Nepo baby who over the last 2 years has carefully crafted his image into an everyday American man. The man, the anchor, who once used to wear bow ties and was an anchor with CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, the definition of an elite, now pretends that he stands in the way between elites and you, his audience. Tucker Carlson now sports flannels and a fly fisherman vest, and his set looks like a log cabin in the middle of Virginia with a babbling brook in the background. And the image he is very carefully crafting is meant to create trust between his viewer, this persona that's meant to deceive his audience or maybe create an environment of trust that is based off of a false assumption. And he's really good at emitting through this carefully crafted persona a level of trust, right? Because if he looks like a blue-collar everyday man, and if he drives a truck like a blue-collar everyday American man, then the assumption is his interests lie with the everyday blue-collar American worker, which again is not true. Tucker Carlson is an elite, and we're going to look at that in a second. But first, let's look at why new media has become wildly popular and even far outpaces legacy media in its viewership. I think we can look to COVID-19 and then also the political tensions with BLM in 2020 and how that was covered as a sea change in American politics and in everyday American life when it came to trusting legacy media corporations. So this is a Gallup poll. This is a new Gallup poll as of October 2nd of this year. And it says trust in media is at a new low of 20% in the U.S. Mass media has fallen and is now at 8%. So let's look at why and when this happened. America's confidence in the mass media has edged down to a new low, with just 28% expressing a great deal or a fair amount of trust in newspapers, television, and radio to report the news fully, accurately, and fairly. This is down 31% last year and 45 years ago. Meanwhile, 7 in 10 U.S. adults now say they have not very much confidence or none at all. So we see that just trust in mass media is at an all-time low. And this is reflected on both the left and right side of the political aisle in the United States. But I want to look specifically at Republicans. So it says Republicans' trust in mass media from 2001 to 2025 is significantly lower. And if we look and we can control for the year, it peaked in 2001. We see around 2019, the rise. So if we go all the way back to, I would say probably 2016 or 2017 when Trump was running for office and then elected, the mass media went on a huge campaign to smear President Trump. So this is when we see distrust in mass media starting to spike. And then there's kind of a lull, and then it spikes again in 2020, so with COVID-19, and then an all-time high until today in 2021. So this would have been in the aftermath of the BLM race riots and also coverage of COVID-19, and then also of January 6th. And then it kind of hovered around here, and now it's spiking again in 2025. And I would argue that, especially on the right, the reason there's a huge distrust in media, because there hasn't been a significant sea change event like COVID-19 or like the BLM race riots or like January 6th for some years now, and President Trump is now in office. I would say individuals like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens are peddling an anti-mass media campaign which first directly benefits them because they are the alternative, they are the new media, but also because both of their platforms are built off of this idea that the mass media is run by elites and you can't trust the elites, and therefore they are the alternative to elites, despite the fact that Tucker was born an elite and Candace married into a very, very wealthy elite British family. So that's where the temperature is in the US. There's another poll that I found very interesting, a Pew Research poll. So this was also published recently, October 29th, so just a few weeks after the Gallup poll. And I thought this was important to note. So as of today, only around half of adults under 50, 52%, have a lot of trust or some trust in information from national news media. Adults under 30 in particular are now about as likely to say that they trust information from national news organizations, 51%, as they are to trust information from social media sites at 50%. Older groups, in turn, are more likely to trust national news and organizations than social media. And that's just a reflection of the generational kind of technological gaps. But this is the really interesting part. Adults under 30 are just as likely to trust national news coverage as they are social media. And this plays into the perception, or I guess the false assumption, that social media and the decentralization of information is a net positive. Because if you decentralize the flow of information, the assumption is that it's free of corruption. But that's not true. There's nuance and there's a tension. You don't want a media oligarchy that then can propagate news and control the flow of information, which then is where state-run propaganda is proliferated. We see that in authoritarian countries. But if you swing to the complete other end of the spectrum, where you decentralize information to the point that there's anarchy of thought and you can say anything and it be true, that's a really dangerous place to be. And the left has been there for the last 5 years. We all remember the 2020 race riots I was talking about with BLM. Just remember all the stories about the amazing man George Floyd was, and the revisionist history about Civil War history and Jim Crow history. And what we learned during 2020 was that if you repeat a false narrative enough, it doesn't matter if it's not true. The perception is that that lie is true. And that is happening on the right as well. The Douglas Murray debate with Dave Smith on Joe Rogan's podcast, I think, perfectly exemplified this. In the interview, Douglas Murray and Dave Smith are debating Israel amongst many other topics. And Dave Smith kept falling back on, well, Douglas, you're appealing to authority and you're citing elite information. So you're saying that I, the layperson, can't have an opinion. And that's kind of the fallback argument for people who are in this Tucker camp, in the camp of, well, if you call out Tucker Carlson's bad or fallacious or just downright wrong ideas or revisionist history, then you're censoring free speech. Okay, so now let's circle back to Tucker Carlson himself. I want to touch on this idea that Tucker is the everyday American man. Again, if you look at his set, if you look at how he's perfectly crafted his podcast, what you will see is that he's trying to emit an image that he is a rugged American who doesn't go on social media first thing in the morning, and he uses his sauna every day, and then he comes in and he reads the Bible, the New Testament, not the Old Testament. The Old Testament's for the Jews. I'm going to watch a clip with you guys from one of his recent podcasts that he posted to highlight the persona he's trying to emit. And then we're going to look at a video produced by Milk Bar TV that compares how Tucker used to talk to how he talks and portrays himself today. Because I want you to be able to compare and contrast the old Tucker of 2 years ago to the Tucker of today. And also ask the question, why is there such a stark difference in who Tucker was when he left Fox News? And yes, I think it's valid to say we evolve as people. Maybe his time away from legacy media or corporate DC interest helped him reconnect to nature. All of that can be true. I think Tucker has always kind of been an outdoorsman, but that doesn't mean that he is a blue collar, everyday American male like he's trying to emit. Again, this is all part of the heuristics and the propaganda behind personalities like Tucker Carlson in trying to frame themselves in a particular way that appeals to the audience they're trying to build trust with. The personality of Tucker Carlson, because I think it's really important to look at his evolution. He is a media elite. He has carefully crafted himself into this everyday blue-collar man. And that very carefully crafted persona with his log cabin set and the evolution of his clothes, he now wears a lot of flannels and fly fisherman vest. He is trying to distance himself from the elite personality that he once was and was once very transparent and honest about into this everyday rugged man. And the intention behind that is to build trust with the audience he's trying to gain influence with. I think he's been really successful with it. So let's look at Tucker Carlson's morning routine. We're going to look at the first 2 or 3 minutes because there's a lot here.
The idea of not being outside is hell. I mean, it's one of the main reasons I obey the law. I don't want to be locked in a cage away from trees at all. And, I've really made it.
I think that's so funny. Not because it would be morally wrong, but because he would be locked away from trees because he just wants to be one with nature.
An affirmative effort to build that into my life every single day. It's one of the reasons I take a sauna every day because it gets me outside. I wake up early, 5 or 6. First thing I do is go to the wood pile, cut my wood for the sauna, split it, and then take it to the sauna. I always go barefoot no matter what the weather. Nice. And then I build the sauna, water everything. That takes me like a half an hour outside. And then I go back and have a cup of coffee and read for an hour. But the point is I get my nature time immediately, no matter what. Yes. It's just built in. That's the first thing I do in our sauna is right next to a pond. So the beaver always slaps his tail at me every single morning. He looks at me. Beavers are just grouchy animals. They're amazing animals, but they're really unpleasant.
I agree.
Just personally unpleasant. It's weird that they all live together, and then we have this giant beaver house, like the size of a school bus, like right next to my sauna. He looks at me in this kind of menacing way, like slap, like that. And then
he knows you. He sees you every morning. Probably the same beaver.
Okay, so first, what I think is interesting because Tucker's privilege and elitism seeps into the stories that he tells. So funny because your average, everyday American blue-collar man cannot afford a sauna, probably doesn't live on a body of water. That might be what they idealize or what they would hope for, maybe work towards for retirement. But your average American man is not in a position to have a sauna or the leisure of a relaxing morning. And then I also love this blanket here. It says, Jesus, friend of sinners. Again, this very carefully crafted pseudo-Christianity that he's pushing as well.
And then there are all the ducks and they're little fussy little ducks.
Yeah.
Ducks, every duck is like a little gate caterer. He's just kind of walking, shaking his tail. They're just fussy. And I look at them and it's just an awesome, vitally important. I mean, I'm not doing anything. I'm building a fire in a wood stove. It's like not that impressive. I haven't actually achieved anything, but if I don't get to do that, like if I'm traveling, it actually drives me crazy.
Something's missing. Like you didn't get
100%. Because if you don't do that, what do you do when you first wake up? You get right on your phone.
Right.
And I don't touch I'm afraid of my phone first thing. It's like I don't want it. So I really try and I do it. I achieve it almost every single day, including this morning. I do my stuff. I usually read the New Testament in the morning and then I get to my phone.
Yeah.
But I just think but it's first nature and try to notice stuff. And that's why I like hunting and fishing because it forces you to notice nature.
You have to pay attention to it.
Close attention.
Right.
Like how is the water flowing over those rocks? Like of course there's food washing into that pool. So there's going to be a trout at the head of it, probably one at the tail. I love to catch trout. I love trout. I think they're beautiful. Brook trout especially. Also salmon. I mean, I just like fish, but it's not even about that really. It's about being forced out of my own head, out of my own stupid concerns into God's creation and just... You have to pay attention.
Oh, no doubt. And
it's almost like he is fetishizing your average country or redneck American man. The other important thing to note is he mentions that he normally reads the New Testament, which is not accidental. If you notice Tucker talking about the Bible, he oftentimes specifies the New Testament. When he was on the Megyn Kelly live tour in White Plains, New York, he mentioned that the New Testament is the bedrock of Western civilization. He's very careful to sever himself from the Old Testament because that's for the Jews, and the New Testament is for the Christians. This pseudo-Christianity, this new right, is making a concerted effort to divorce itself from the Jews of the Old Testament, which is hilarious to me because we worship a Jewish Messiah, and the need for a savior outside of the context of Judaism makes no sense. You might think that him mentioning, it's the New Testament is innocent and doesn't mean anything, but in Tucker Carlson's worldview, it does, and he is a seasoned media personality, reporter, commentator. Every word Tucker Carlson says is said with intention. Okay, so this video that Nathan put together was created after Tucker Carlson scoffs at a student for asking him about his $50 million net worth, which is an extremely conservative assessment of his net worth. That probably represents his own self-made net worth, but he also has a significant financial family legacy that he was born into. So he says, factoring in Tucker Carlson's estimated $10 to $20 million annual Fox News salary, his 8-figure book deal, his real estate holdings, the sale of the Daily Caller, and whatever income he's earning from his new media ventures, a net worth of $50 million is hardly a stretch of the imagination. So let's look at the evolution of Tucker Carlson.
And again, as I say, the shtick is sort of built on this perception that he is the character he plays. He is every man, this kind of, he's not right-wing, he's a populist, fighting for you against the powers that be. This is the truck that I drove this morning. This is the truck I drive. It's a 1987 Chevrolet Silverado. There are no electronics in this. There's no air conditioning, there's no radio, and there's no way for the government to turn off my engine if I'm disobedient. And that's great as a shtick, but I'm just saying the moment that it's revealed not to be true, it's over.
It's like you're worth $50 million.
I'm not worth $50 million.
30 to 50.
Get off the fucking internet, son. Don't stop believing that stuff.
I'm not worth $50 million. I think he's telling the truth. I think he's worth significantly more than $50 million. And the everyday man, the everyman that Tucker is talking about, it being a shtick, it being a cosplay, it being a persona, is exactly the tactic that he himself has adopted.
No. But see, I'm an out of the closet elitist. I don't run around pretending to be a man of the people. I'm absolutely not a man of the people at all.
I had the privilege of not being interested in money because I didn't grow up in a family where we were worried about money. So I just never really thought about money.
Tucker's great-great-great-grandfather was known as the Cattle King of California, the largest landowner in the United States in the 19th century. Just to give you an idea of the enormous wealth.
Well, it's kind of like a Kramer versus Kramer situation, right? They got a divorce and she took off.
Tucker and his brother did end up with part of the oil and gas minerals that she owned in her estate. So even that went well for Tucker.
Well, I'm like extraordinarily loaded just from like money I, inherited from my number of trust funds.
From the Swanson deal.
She wasn't your mother.
That's how I felt. I had a mother. I mean,
that's
my
right.
dad got remarried to someone I think of as my mother.
1979, the father, he's going to marry Patricia Caroline Swanson. She is the heir to the Swanson billion-dollar fortune, the frozen food family.
Serve Swanson dinner soon.
I'm like extraordinarily loaded just from like money I, inherited.
You're a trust fund baby, are you not?
No, completely. I've never needed to work.
I think there's kind of a deep phoniness at the center of his shtick.
I worked in a kitchen in 1985. Everybody in the kitchen had a criminal record. Every single one. But of course, every dishwasher has been to prison for something, right?
I mean, I do really prefer the...
It's so funny because, and the clip you're about to see also highlights this, Tucker has a great disdain for the everyman that he is trying to cosplay as in order to gain trust, which therefore leads to influence, which therefore leads to money and power, which we've seen him perfectly execute over the last 2 years. He thinks his audience is stupid. He holds them in great disdain. In this next clip, he talks about how he thinks the feudal model is the best model. He is inherently an elitist, and that slips through, and you'll see it slip through in some of his interviews and the things that he says. You just have to pay really, really close attention. And right here, when he talks about how he used to work in a kitchen and every dishwasher has been to prison for something, right? An elite looks down on the working class. And you could even say that the dishwasher is probably the bottom of the service industry when it comes to the restaurant industry. I have worked in restaurants. The dishwasher at the restaurant I used to work at, I don't believe went to prison. They obviously had a harder life, and that was maybe the only job that they were qualified for. But for him to just blanket statement say, because they've all been to prison for something, right? Shows his elitist, demonstrates his elitism and his worldview and his hatred for the lower classes.
Right?
I mean, I do really prefer the feudal model, which is it's the model of all time.
One thing you learn when you...
The feudal model, which is essentially slavery. And the only people who used to benefit from the feudal system were the elites, the lords.
You grow up in a castle and look out across the moat every day at the hungry peasants out in the village.
Yeah.
Is you don't want to stoke envy among the proletariat.
This Swanson heir essentially posing a question to this audience that they never really have to ponder.
What sane person would choose to live, and let's do top end, $30 million, 16th floor apartment in a crowded city over a log cabin in a pine forest with the wood stove glowing as the snow falls?
$50 million, right? Because the whole thing is predicated on the fact that he is who he says he is. And just nobody is that person, especially not someone who makes $1 million, or many millions a year.
Actually, he's been able to get, a $20 million a year contract.
So I have a book out coming Monday.
And I'm not rich, but I paid my house off.
He sold his Washington, D.C. home for $3.95 million.
Tucker literally said again when it was his Tucker Carlson network in the beginning days, that's his old set, I paid my house off. I'm not rich, but I paid my house off. In America, if you are part of the middle class, one of the greatest achievements that you can make financially would be to pay off your house. Many Americans will stay in the same house their entire life and go to work a 9 to 5 every single day for 30 plus years to then pay off their house. This is like the greatest achievement. And Tucker knows that is the greatest financial achievement for your average everyday middle class American. And he's trying to cosplay as that. I'm not rich, but I was able to pay off my house. He just made millions and millions of dollars at Fox News annually. Forget his family fortune. He himself is wildly successful.
Dollars in July of 2020 to purchase, a $2.9 million property in Boca Grande, a small community in Southwest Florida.
We have 4 kids, and they all left. They all went to boarding school when they were young. So we've lived alone for a while.
Tucker sent all of his children to boarding school. You're going to hear it in this clip. So he's cosplaying as the everyman, but the everyman doesn't have a sauna that they can leisurely go to and water the sauna for a few hours every morning and then go inside and read. That's only afforded to you because of wealth and of time. And it's very clear that he had lots of time because he didn't even raise his own children like the everyman does.
Oh, trust me, you will send your kids to boarding school.
Oh, no, I will not. I promise you that. I love my kids, and I want to hang on to them and love them and give them a kiss at night and not have to talk to them via AT&T. Jesus,
okay.
You rich people.
You got real defensive there. I just read a number that's like a lot of money.
I don't know what happened to all the money. I don't really care. It's fun.
It's amazing.
The laugh is just, it's too good. One of the things that Tucker in this new cosplay has peddled is this idea that our elites are corrupt and that foreign governments are colluding with our government at the expense of your everyday conservative Christian American. But the irony is he claims to be anti-globalism, he claims to be anti-elitism, yet he's sympathetic to that when it comes to illiberal authoritarian regimes abroad. So first, I want to just revisit this newsletter from Tucker Carlson to kind of frame the ideology behind who is lobbying him and for why. And you can see that translate into the rhetoric of his podcast and his newsletters. In this newsletter, I've shown in a different clip on my channel, he asked about the West winning World War II and did they actually win? It reads, "The West loves to brag it won World War II. We hear the talking points every day. While it's true that allies triumphed on the battlefield, their governments have hardly spent the last 8 decades behaving like victors. Instead, they've gone out of their way to run their countries into the ground. Through their ambivalence towards crime, embrace of globalism," this is what I want to focus on, "and outright obsession with immigration, they've led their citizens on a slow march in the wrong direction." Okay, you'll often hear him demonize globalism, which is very interesting to me because globalism is not an ideology. There's different ideologies that might favor globalism or might support further economic entrenchment with allies. This is the post-World War II liberal idea that if we can increase cooperation and economic interdependence with our allies or with other countries abroad, it will pacify the likelihood of conflict. That is an international liberal idea. But globalism is a reality. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century and the technological revolution of the 20th century, we have closed the geographic gap. Oceans no longer separate us. Ideas can be transmitted in seconds thanks to social media. Globalism globalism is a state of being. And yes, different ideologies might favor it or disincentivize it, but globalism itself is not an ideology. And Tucker tries to frame it as such. But the interesting thing is that Tucker actually favors globalism and favors elitism abroad by pandering to or being lobbied by illiberal regimes such as Qatar or Saudi Arabia or Russia. So we're going to look at Tucker's push for globalism when it comes to different summits in the Middle East. But first, I want to look at the role of foreign lobbying in the US government. This is Open Secrets, and it's tracking the foreign lobby both by sovereign nation on the one side and then by foreign principal, which for a lot of these authoritarian regimes that don't have a privatized economy, they're one and the same. This just tracks by the billions how much money is being poured into the US. And one of the really disingenuous attempts of the new right is to demonize the Jews or Israel as controlling the United States. Candace Owens and even Tucker Carlson have made the outright claim that we are controlled by Israel. This idea that there is an Israel first lobby within the US and that that's a betrayal of US interests that is anything but patriotic. And if you have dual loyalty to another nation, you are a traitor. That is an idea that Tucker himself has pushed. You can look at his TPUSA summit speech from this past summer, which perfectly exemplifies what I'm saying. The irony is that this new right movement focuses on Israel at the bottom, but doesn't focus on the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Liberia, and China, who are illiberal, anti-American regimes that pour hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States for soft power influence. They fund a lot of our education system, a lot of our media, once legacy media. The shift has now focused on new media personalities like Tucker Carlson, because he yields more influence than legacy media. Qatar is just interested in the influence and the power that their money can get. Tucker yields more influence now than legacy media, therefore the money has followed Tucker. So I just want to show you how much money pours into the United States, and Israel is but a small percentage of all of the money that is flowing in. I now want to look at Tucker specifically when it comes to Qatar lobbying. So for his interview with the Prime Minister of Qatar, they had to register through FARA. We can look at that here. This is the actual document. This was filed on April 30th of this year. And the registrant is Lumen 8 Advisors LLC, which is some association to Tucker Carlson. Okay, so now if we look at the exchange of money, they are very sneaky because they say that there was no exchange of money, but there was an exchange of services, and then that service was paid for. So for anyone who wants to jump to Tucker Carlson's defense and say that the FARA registration does not demonstrate he was paid for his interview with the Qatari Prime Minister, you are not reading this document correctly. Okay, so number 11 asks, during the 6 months reporting period, has the registrant engaged in any activities for or rendered any services to any foreign principal named in items 7, 8, or 9 of the statement? They checked yes. It says see appendix for a response, and we are going to read the appendix for a response. Number 12, during the 6 month reporting period, has the registrant on behalf of any foreign principal engaged in political activities as defined below? If yes, and then they put see response 11, so it's in the appendix. What was that activity? The foreign principal is the embassy of the state of Qatar. The contact was Tucker Carlson, the Tucker Carlson show. So Tucker is explicitly stated here, which connects him to Lumen 8 Advisors LLC. The method was the in-person interview with the Prime Minister of Qatar regarding the war with Iran. The Prime Minister of Qatar is being attacked in the media for wanting to stop it. Number 13, in addition to the above described activities, if any, has the registrant engaged in activity or rendered any services on its own behalf which benefits the registrant's foreign principals? It says no. But notice it's asking if they've rendered any services on their own behalf. And that's where the Lumen 8 LLC comes in here as well. This is very deceptive. Number 14, during the 6 month reporting period, has the registrant received from any foreign principal or from any other source for or in the interest of any foreign principal, any contributions, income, or money, either as compensation or otherwise? If no, please explain why no monies were received. It says Embassy of the State of Qatar. The registrant received payments from the State of Qatar in connection with non-registrable activities during the reporting period. So I saw on X a lot of people were saying, no, the document doesn't say that Tucker received money for doing the interview with the Qatari Prime Minister. Again, that's incorrect. They did it in a very sneaky backdoor way. It says that he was receiving payments from Qatar, but in connection to something that was not a registrable activity. So let's see what that was. So if you scroll all the way down to the appendix, it says that the registrant provided media and communication strategy and consulting services relating to the U.S. to the government spokesperson for the state of Qatar. During this reporting period, Lumen 8 Advisors LLC also engaged in non-registrable activities on behalf of the state of Qatar, including communication strategy, consulting, and training services to the state of Qatar relating to non-U.S. media, media ethics, freedom of expression in the Middle East, bilateral and multilateral relations, and capacity building. None of these activities are intended to influence the U.S. government or any section of the U.S. public. That's ridiculous, because what was the podcast supposed to influence? The millions and millions and millions of followers that he has. Okay, so this is a document that shows registrants' political activities and media activity when it comes to Qatar lobbying media personalities. And you see, again, they don't discriminate right or left. Legacy media, new media. You have IMDb here, BBC is recorded, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline Hollywood, Kane's Market News, The Hollywood Reporter, Variety again, CNN, Fox News is on here as well, The Daily Mail, The Washington Examiner. You have Senator Tim Scott also on here. So we have elected officials being reported as corresponding with Qatar. We have legacy media personalities. And we also have here, again, this is recording what I just showed you, which was the interview between Tucker Carlson and the Prime Minister of Qatar. I believe Fox News. Yeah, Fox News is also on here, because I want to highlight CNN is recorded, Fox News is recorded. And what was the purpose of this Fox News correspondence? It was via email, and it had to do with the hostage negotiations. When the state sponsor of terrorism that funds and harbors Hamas leaders and Muslim Brotherhood leaders, Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood are essentially one and the same, is trying to influence the West and conservative media on how to coverage the hostage negotiations, there's a deeper issue. And we, the audience, are the victims of a mass media campaign funded by illiberal foreign regimes abroad, and it's coming at us through all angles, including through legacy media and the rise of new media with individuals like Tucker Carlson. I want to drive this point home with one more example. Laura Loomer tweeted out, Tucker Carlson's business partner and CEO of Tucker Carlson Network is heading to Qatar to smooth with globalists and jihadis in December. So Neil Patel is going to Doha for the Globalist Doha Forum this December 6th through 8th. So again, Tucker hates globalism, yet his business partner is going to the Globalist Doha Forum in Qatar. The Doha Forum is hosted by the Clinton Global Initiative, the World Economic Forum, the Gates Foundation, and is media partnered with CNN. So Laura Loomer points out, Tucker Carlson, who lectures everyone daily about how America first he is connected to a conference hosted by the world's most powerful globalist and open border advocates who are gathering in Qatar to hear Hillary Clinton speak. Tucker Carlson is a fraud. He thinks his audience is so stupid that they won't see the blatant ideological contradiction in the interest that he aligns himself with versus the information and the anti-Western illiberal worldview that he platforms. He is no different than the neo-Marxist on the left. And Tucker embraces Marxism, Islamism, revisionist history that favors fascism. The through line between all of that is A, he favors authoritarianism over liberalism, and B, that he dislikes the Jews, because the through line between Marxism, Islamism, and fascism is a scapegoating of the Jews. This is a video of Tucker talking about how he was returning to the Real Estate Future Forum in 2026 in Saudi Arabia. Let's listen to Tucker with his own mouth, his own platform, and through his own words, what he will be doing in Saudi Arabia.
The most interesting things I did last year in 2025 by far was spend a week in Saudi Arabia, which is an amazing country. I'd never been there before. It's moving and evolving at a speed that is shocking, really can't be described. It has to be seen. And I got to Saudi Arabia because I went to the Real Estate Future Forum, and I was amazed by it. I did not know what to expect. I just wanted to visit the country, but I had the best time really that I could imagine at that forum. And so I'm going again this year. The people were incredibly nice. By the way, everyone in the world was there. What are you doing here? I kept saying to people, the Real Estate Future Forum is an amazing experience. And by the way, Saudi law has changed. There's a new law on non-Saudi real estate ownership. So the sector is bigger than ever. And every person you've ever met or wanted to meet will be at this I'll be there. I'm really excited to be invited again. I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't. And so I will see you there. I hope January 26th to the 28th in Riyadh. Thanks.
Okay, so first you have to ask the question, why is Tucker pushing a real estate forum in Saudi Arabia? That has nothing to do with his audience or the interest his audience would have. We can ascertain that he is being lobbied or he is being paid to speak at these forums, and that's why he's pushing it on his network, despite the fact that it's completely tone deaf and out of touch with what his audience would be interested in or their financial capabilities. This is so far outside of the realm of what your average everyday American is concerned with. Only elites go to this forum. He's like, oh, everyone in the world is there. Everyone in the world who's an elite is there. And again, it just goes back to Tucker Carlson lecturing us about how bad globalism is, how globalism is the result of the Allied forces winning, and it has led the West astray. He hates open immigration and the fixation on immigration. That's another reason he says in this newsletter, again, I will read, through their ambivalence towards crime, embrace of globalism, and through outright obsession with immigration, they've led their citizens on a slow march in the wrong direction. That's from the newsletter that I already showed you guys. But he's embracing globalism. And his co-founder for the Tucker Carlson Network is going to Doha to cozy up with the Gates Foundation and the Clinton Foundation, who are some of the biggest proponents of open border immigration and the one world order. Tucker Carlson is a fraud, and he's doing it through a very carefully crafted caricature of the everyman that he is portraying. And because members of the right or of MAGA are fatigued by legacy media or believe them to be deeply corrupt, which they are, two things can exist at the same time. You can hold those truths in tension. It does not mean that Tucker Carlson or other new media personalities are untethered or unmoved by those special interests that corrupted the legacy media. They are also embracing it, and they think that you are dumb enough to not see what is right in front of you. So again, is legacy media bad and corrupt? Yes. But is the decentralization and the new media that is rising on the right factual, truthful, or represents the interest of every American? No, it can be equally as corrupt. And unfortunately, the downside of decentralizing information is that there is anarchy of thought. There is the false assumption that anything you say online is true. And that is a threat to both the left and the right, specifically the younger generations who get all of their information from social media. Listen to the words that individuals like Candace Owens or Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson are saying, not how they might look, not the personas they're trying to portray, but what they are saying. And then you can just look a little bit further. You don't have to dive that deeply to see the special interests that are buying people like Tucker Carlson, that are flying them to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to cozy up with globalists, despite the fact that Tucker Carlson not only hates globalism, but cites it as the reason for the moral decline and fall in the West. The only entities that are benefiting from the division on the right are individuals like Tucker Carlson, who are making a lot of money doing it, and the illiberal regimes that are paying him, because it's creating dissent in the United States. And while Qatar is trying to buy soft power influence in American media and politics, it yields detrimental hard power results. If America retreats from the global stage, if the influence on Tucker Carlson with foreign policy positions and outlooks on the right creates a strong enough coalition that pressures future leaders to retreat from the global stage, we then would have the rise of Qatar and their influence, not just in the Middle East, but globally, rivaling the United States. The United States is too strong to be conquered by enemies from the outside. So they are dividing America from within. Abraham Lincoln said this: if America were to fall, it would fall because of internal strife. Our enemies do not have the capabilities to fight us with hard power, with military power in a war, but they can fight us in the information war on our home turf. And unfortunately, they are winning.